So, are we okay? All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Selçuk. I'm from PrimeDAO. So, we are welcoming today three esteemed speakers from different backgrounds. We will talk about Web3, how Web3 empowers the public goods. Also, if you want to talk about the public goods, we need to understand how they are operated in the Web3 ecosystem. So, we are a little bit dive into the DAO structures and how do they operate in the scope of public goods funding. And also, if you want to talk about public goods, we really need to talk about the refi, aka regenerative finance as well. So we will also talk about the refi and what should we understand from the refi, what does it mean for us, and how it affects public goods funding. And also we will talk about the Web3 adoption in legacy non-profit organizations such as United Nations, since we have a valuable guest from the United Nations as well in Turkey. So before that, let me explain briefly what we are doing in Prime. In Prime, we consider ourselves as an ecosystem developer by bringing value to growing ecosystems. So we are improving coordination between the stakeholders, bringing operational workforce, and supporting the projects. So how do we support the projects? We are supporting the projects by matching them with the mentors from our mentor pools. We are connecting them with the service providers. Also, we are giving opportunity to give funding and grants from through our stakeholders or through directly from Prime. And also, we have free marketing support and so on. And also, we have a suite of product sets that we are helping to the projects while their journey on the token launching journey. And I think Jem is mentioned a little bit about Prime deals, like before the coffee break. But I'm not going to go into details. This is not about it. And also, I need to mention that we have a strong connections and partnership with the Istanbul Blockchain. So within this partnership, we are empowering the refi ecosystem by helping these refi projects, impact-focused projects in this ecosystem. So right now, I would like to give a chance to all speakers to say a few words about themselves and also explain their projects, what they are doing in these projects. So who would like to start?
I start?
Yeah,
okay.
please.
Hi, my name is Luca. I'm from Italy, and so I've been in blockchain since 2013 when I got my first Bitcoin, and I had a booking platform since 2001, something like Airbnb, but before Airbnb, it's a lifestyle business. Which allowed me to travel full-time for 10 years. And I started accepting Bitcoin as payments. And then I discovered Ethereum a bit late in 2017. And I discovered it as a DAO building mechanism. And I got very excited very quickly because in 2014, my business had already been basically killed by, 17, killed by Airbnb. So my kind of lifestyle, travel around the world, digital nomad thing was going to end. And when I heard about Ethereum, I said, wow, we can do a decentralized Airbnb. I think we could do it at the time. So I created a community. I called it Trips Community. We started working on the problem in 2017. And since then, we've been kind of trying to understand how to make this. We kind of gave up a couple of years ago because the tech wasn't ready. So the scalability wasn't there. And now the scalability is there, but we don't have I call it the wallet penetration. There's not enough people with wallets. So we started experimenting. We did the first NFT booking in the world with a villa in Spain. Then we did the first hotel NFT booking in the world, etc. So we've been experimenting for a couple of years, and now we are waiting for like the moment to be right to build something really decentralized. You can build centralized things today, but it's really hard to build decentralized things. From the DAO point of view, we've made 5 years of experience. It's been a lot of fun, and I got a lot to share in case.
Perfect. Yeah. We will get there. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. My name is Tyler, and I'm from Canada, but I'm actually living here in Istanbul. I've been living abroad for about 10 years between multiple countries and running multiple businesses. I took the crypto red pill in 2017, and then I started working with some ICOs that are a little bit less than savory, and I've been through the whole DeFi summer, NFT summer. I've participated in a whole bunch of projects, seen it all, thought I could never be surprised again, but last week just shocked me. So crypto's an exciting time to be in, especially with these FTX debacle going on right now. And I am a core contributor for CrowdMuse, which I think is key in moving the creator economy forward and bringing regenerative finance models to the creator economy. So essentially what we are doing is we're providing an infrastructure protocol for creators to collaborate, and what happens is, like, for example, with our first use case, a fashion collective can be formed as a decentralized brand. So a designer, a supplier, and a microfactory can get together, and through the magic of the blockchain, they can create a product, and then there will be automatic revenue sharing going back to them. And then they can also create licensable IP that would be giving them revenue streams on chain, and then they can also do crowdfunding models, which would also bring royalty streaming to the consumer. So essentially what we're building is co-ownership models for the next iteration of the creator economy.
Hi, this is Berkan Toros from United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. I'm not going to be talking about my personal aspirations, but I'm going to be talking about what UNHCR does in general. Before saying that, I have been with the UN system since 2002. Before that, I was at UNDP, United Nations Development Program, and 2014 I moved to UNHCR, and I am an external relations officer. Our aim generally in this one is the core principles of UNHCR, such as protection of refugees and providing services to refugees so that they can continue a dignified life. With that being said, our main aim into this blockchain environment is actually to be a part of a new innovative financing structure, firstly, but secondly, and foremost, more importantly, is to be able to provide solutions, protection solutions especially, for refugees, for persons in need, using the blockchain technology. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to be entering into details of what maybe we can do under this.
All right, thank you. All right, let's get the ball rolling. So what was the question? How Web3 empowers public goods? So I think in order to, for the sake of giving the right context to the audience, we need to understand what is the meaning of public goods in the Web3 scale and in the legacy financial systems, I would say. I know that in Web3 there is not a concrete definition of public goods. It's kind of a know it when you see it approach, and I think it's creates a space for doing more experimentation, and which is great that we are seeing a lot of good innovations nowadays. A lot of projects experimenting new stuff, and this is good. But we need to understand what we are talking about. So I want to give to two people to speak about public goods from different perspectives. Would you like to start?
Okay. When you look to the concept of public good, it actually self-defines itself. So you are creating a good for the public. And when you look at it from a protection point of view, is that whenever you are under threat of persecution, meaning that whenever you are under threat of becoming a refugee or being a refugee, personally, then you are actually losing a lot of opportunities plus rights that you can have under your own country. Like giving in a situation, a refugee is a person who has to flee from a country, from their home country, to another country, and by this crossing, they are losing their rights. They might have problems in accessing to legal services. They might have problems in accessing to education, health, livelihoods opportunities, anything and everything that you can find very easily when you're a citizen, but when you lost your citizenship, it becomes a bit of a pass hassle. So public goods, from a UNHCR point of view, is actually being able to create a room or giving the opportunity to a person to re-establish this connection with a government, with a state. Through UNHCR, not through UNHCR, but within the realm of refugee work, what happens is that you become, firstly, an asylum seeker, and then you go through an identification process, an assessment process, and then a finalization process, I might say. So through this process, once this process is established, you will have a status. It can be a refugee status, it can be a temporary protection status, or it can be a deportation status, because in some cases people might also have to be deported because of anything that is not under the UN Convention. So having said this, public good, from our perspective, is including this whole structure, giving the person to be able to reach out to a protective environment in which they can continue a dignified life. I can maybe, like, in a very simple terms, say this.
Thanks a lot. So from the Web3 perspective, who would like to talk about it? Let's do some spontaneous. Anybody?
Me?
Yeah,
Right.
if you want.
In the context of the internet, a very simplified way I like to use for thinking about public goods is anything which doesn't have a red button, you can turn it off. So the internet is public goods. I don't know, Facebook is not public goods. You can turn it off, right? All the technology which allows the internet to run, so maybe Linux is public goods, but anything at the higher level becomes private. So what we're doing with blockchain is part of the internet and it's public goods again, right? So we made the open public part of the internet thicker, and we are making the application layer, the private layer, thinner. So the more we build as a public good, the better in general for most people. Yeah, so that's a very simplified version.
Yeah, thanks for this analogy, actually. Yeah, I like it. So Berkan, let's talk about UN. So historically, we know that large organizations, especially non-profit organizations and NGOs, show really slow adoption to the new technologies. There are several reasons behind it. I think maybe like duty you have as a steward to this donors fund, and also the sensitivity of the work is being done, and also the challenges that when testing new technologies while you are implementing in the projects that affects millions of people's lives. It's tricky. But in UN and its charitable arms like UNICEF or World Food Program, or even in its agencies, we've seen a great adoption. So I want to understand how you see this adoption and what are the advantages that blockchain provides while you are giving your services in this scape. So, yeah.
Okay, maybe I cannot talk about like on behalf of all UN system, but I can maybe just give some hints about what UNHCR is trying to do and how we do it. It's very much right that all the UN institutions, including UNHCR, is a bureaucratic giant. It's like state structures. It's very slow from time to time. It is sometimes considered as non-responsive, but our duties and responsibilities does not only rely for a profit-making point of view, but it also, and maybe on the totally contrary way, relies on the protection of the beneficiaries at the end of the day. This can be a case for UNHCR through the refugees. This can be a case for the FAO, for the agriculture sector. This can be a case, let's say, for UNICEF, for children. So this is the way. But the thing is that as the life evolves, the UN system and also UNHCR is also evolving. Now we are trying to enter into new realms to provide services more fastly. And we think that blockchain can be a tool, not is, but can be a tool for faster delivery of services. Just to give you an example, if a person doesn't have an ID card, like just to give like a very simple, this card says that Berkan Toros. I can claim myself as Berkan Toros, and I can maybe prove that I am Berkan Toros with a document which I'm now keeping in my wallet with my ID card. But does that mean that I am Berkan Toros? Can anybody confirm it? Probably no. But then we are thinking that if we move this identification issue into a blockchain environment, thinking from a refugee point of view, where this person leaves the country maybe with only a very small bag, because in a refugee situation, what happens is that a conflict starts, it erupts very immediately, it increases very fastly, and maybe you don't have a chance to bring any item with you. Maybe you just be able to bring a very small bag, cross the road, start moving. At that situation, that person is even in a worse situation than I am right now explaining. The person might not have any papers. The government that the person has a right might not accept those papers. So because of that, the person might have very big difficulties in reaching out to the protection. So in order to fasten this process, we might think that the blockchain technology can be a very good tool, because what happens is that when you insert your ID into a blockchain environment, then you won't have to carrying a document, a paperized document together with you, and then it will ease the recipient government's identification of yourself within their system. We are very much aware of the situation that now it is also actually relies with the recipient government's approach against the blockchain environment. This is something else, but we are thinking that since the world is evolving into a more digitalized entity in general, this might also going to come in the future. So whenever we are able to reach to this stage, then the blockchain is going to be a very good tool for us. But on the other hand, I can also tell you a very specific example. Now UNHCR has actually done some NFTs and also did some crowdfunding as well as a couple of fundraising through the crypto environment and then distributed these amounts to the beneficiaries, so those persons in need. And while we are doing so, we also still use the blockchain technology, the wallet part of it. But considering the identification, the registration, and then the rest of the protection is also on the way, it is coming. This is what I can tell about UNHCR. The other agencies also has their own approaches, but I am thinking, considering that the problem definition of each UN institution is very much similar, but just changing the subject of it, they might be also using this one as well.
All right. I need to say this, given the massive reach of UN and its agencies, it's really impressive and encouraging that you value this technology and embrace it as a tool and using it. So from my perspective, I personally thank you. All right, let's dive into the details more. So I want to talk about the DAOs. I think from 2 sessions ago, there was a deep dive about the DAOs itself. Grace were presenting, I guess, the moderator. So I don't want to talk about the context of DAO itself, but I want to talk about the DAOs and how they are functioning in the scope of public goods funding. Because we know that a lot of public goods projects are governing and doing their operations through these DAO structures. So maybe you have plenty of experience, Luca. Maybe you could mention about your experiences, how it is some challenges that you are creating and DAO and make it properly functioning. And could you tell us more about that?
Well, the first challenge we had at the beginning was that we wanted to onboard everybody. So we were spending a lot of time trying to find ways to have people come into the DAO and be active. And we failed. We failed because the amount of time and effort it takes to get every single person to a place where they can actually be productive is higher than the productivity of each person. And we got to a point in which we kind of do this passively and we say, okay, that's what we're doing. Find a place, do something, and if you cannot do it, well, that's fine. First of all, this is 99% of people cannot do it, because they are more used into getting into a company and be told what to do. But that 1% which you get on board is doing more than all the others. So that removes the whole need for onboarding people. And this is very close to how open source software works. The guy before was telling DAOs as programs. It was very powerful. You create a structure and then people go through it. Most can get in, or they go into other DAOs. A few stay and they are productive. And of course it depends, I guess, on the DAO and what you're doing, but in our example, in our case, that's the equilibrium we reached and we're very happy with that, basically. So that was a challenge. The other challenge is in general, what to do exactly, right? Well, in our case, we changed the target constantly. And another thing which we learned on the way is that you don't have to have the whole DAO do everything. You can make like mini DAO in the DAO, right? Let's launch a PFP project, or let's launch an NFT project. Maybe we can raise a bit of money. Maybe not everybody likes this. Maybe we can put the money in a safe, and there's like, instead of 1,000 people, there's 100 people. And then those 100 people or 10 people are much more focused. So that's another thing we learned. You can't really involve everyone on everything, you know? Also because we are in many DAOs. Myself, I belong to other DAOs too, right? So that's something we learned on the way. And again, I really like the DAOs as programmable organizations. We still have to learn how to program them, but this is definitely the way, in my opinion. Like, you create a structure, and then people are input, and some of them are going to give you an output, and the others go. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. By the way, can we extend it a little bit, maybe 5 to 10 minutes longer? Is it okay? I think it's okay. All right. I think we need to talk about refi as well. Like, I want to, like, this is a new paradigm that everybody's talking about, but what we know actually about the refi, regenerative finance. So it uses money and it uses DeFi tools to solve some systemic problems and regenerate communities and regenerate natural environments. But I think most of the people, at least in Turkey, in the Web3 ecosystem, most of the people doesn't aware of what is the meaning of refi, what it's happening in this ecosystem actually right now. So maybe Tyler, you could also give a brief explanation about refi, but start with the definition itself and what is the meaning of it, and in the scope of public goods funding, what does it mean for us?
Yeah, of course. So refi, or regenerative finance, aims to solve real-world problems by using the blockchain. So a lot of people equate refi with the carbon credit marketplace, and that is one of the very first use cases that emerged where carbon credits were put on the blockchain. It's still an emerging use case. I mean, it's not really perfect. We haven't really created a fully efficient use case for that yet. Some other good processes of refi are to do, for example, microloans for frontier economies or emerging economies. So essentially, like, if someone wants to start a business and they don't have access to capital, using the blockchain, it's easier to get money out there than traditional banking methods like the SWIFT network, for example, doesn't operate in a lot of countries. And there are millions or even billions who are unbanked, who could be very easily banked just through Web3. So regenerative finance is basically the opposite of a lot of what's been happening in the crypto space lately. This is why I believe in it quite firmly, and I think that in order to cross the chasm of adoption, I mean, we're all talking here today about how to bring in billions of new users, and if everyone is coming in just because of promises of future returns or, you know, getting rich quick, it's not sustainable, right? We can't have an ecosystem that is hyper-financialized. I mean, like, the main value add of cryptocurrency is that we can add incentives related to financial returns, but we have to be careful with that, because if we focus too much on financial returns, first of all, we have, you know, crises like the FTX debacle, and we also have bad actors entering the space. Regenerative finance aims to bring in more virtuous use cases where we can create flywheels that create better economies and make people more make people more interested in the process of cryptocurrency. Right now, there's a big misconception that cryptocurrency, I mean, like, you tell someone that you're in cryptocurrency and they think, oh, do you trade? Do you mine? Right? And that's not what cryptocurrency is. That's how it started. But now, as we look to actually bring it out to the world, we have to look at how we're going to drill it down to physical, concrete, real-life use cases that make this a better place to live in.
Could you give some example, please, from maybe your projects, your work?
Sorry, I couldn't get it. That was for you? All right, okay.
Tyler.
Sorry?
Could you give some real-life examples from your projects that you've been implementing?
Okay, so CrowdMuse is regenerative finance, because what we do is we aim to disrupt entrenched business models. So, like, if you want to scale a company past a small or medium enterprise, these days, effectively what you need to do is you need to push down your cost basis on one part of the supply chain. So fashion is a very good example of that, because it's obvious. There was a recent study done that factory workers for fast fashion brands such as H&M and Zara are getting 4 pence per garment that they make. And then these garments go on to be sold for like 50, 60 pounds or even more, right? So, I mean, obviously these people are being exploited. They work like 28 days a month and I think like 12, 14 hours a day. I can't remember the exact numbers, but obviously not a very sustainable business model, right? It is good for Zara because they are, of course, making money from this, but what CrowdMuse aims to do is enable better collaboration through our infrastructure so that you don't, like the traditional fashion designer who wants to start a brand, they face a problem of having to create enough demand so that they can keep their factories operating. So if they, for example, can't scale their demand side enough, getting enough people buying their clothes, then they have to shut down their factories because they can't afford to keep them open. And with our regenerative business model, we aim to change the supply chain as a one-way path into a supply web where it's modular so that, for example, multiple designers can come in and tap into the same supply network, and then that factory can repurpose its supply according to where the demand is. And all of this is possible with the coordination tools that the blockchain present us. We just have to make sure that there's enough demand for it. So what we do is we onboard the fashion designers and the brands that already have supporters, because like a fashion designer who has a fan base is just like a famous musician. The fans will follow and they will purchase everything because they're adamant supporters. So if they bring in a large enough demand, then that creates that flywheel where more suppliers will want to enter in, and then more designers come in as well. So,
thanks a lot. So, Luca, I want to hear your opinions as well regarding as general of FreePi.
On regenerative finance, right? Well, basically, I agree with Tyler. Cryptocurrencies are mostly a coordination tool, which taps into the incentives of people. If we just stop at the, like instead of making profit for the company, we make profit for the individual, it's already a great step ahead. So this is DeFi and all the speculation and all the crypto we have known so far. But we can use these incentives and this coordination tool for creating public goods. Public goods are something which take time and effort to build, but once it's built, it's just out there. Like it's released into nature. Like if you think of the, I go back to DeFi, the Uniswap smart contracts are there. Uniswap can't get them back. It's like if you invent a new kind of seed for a new kind of tomato and you release it into nature, you can't get it back, right? So now it belongs to everybody. We have to find ways to build stuff which is not only financial, the Uniswap is financial, but it could be, like email. Email is a protocol, right? And it's not financial. And somebody did it without incentives. Now, can we do something like email or TCP/IP or whatever, or Linux? We already have this kind of regenerative things, right? Yeah. Which public goods, which create wealth for the world. Now, can we, with cryptocurrency, make it better? You would say yes, but it happened already. Maybe because you put incentives, this is not possible. We have to find out. I think we can, right? But we haven't. We started talking about this, I think, a year ago. Regen, this word is kind of new, right? So give us some time. We're going to figure out, I guess. And sooner or later, we're going to have this very big and very important protocols, which are not, which are financially based, but for public goods. So we need time, I guess. We're all experimenting.
We need to build more, yeah.
Can I just add to that? Yeah, so essentially the public good is a hyperstructure, which is core infrastructure, which does not get replaced, right? So it sits there and anyone can access it. And, it's going to take time for us to really fully understand how to coordinate humans around these core pieces of infrastructure. So it was mentioned yesterday during the bear market investing panel that there are 10-year cycles of technology adoption. And we just have to be patient and iterate and experiment and be, open to trying new things and learning from our mistakes and, of course, communicating transparently so that we can accelerate this process of learning much faster.
Thanks a lot. Our time is end, but I think it's okay to extend it to 5 to 10 minutes. I have one more topic that I want to bring it up. Well, it's generally the incentive mechanisms for community participation, which I think it's crucial to building a sustainable ecosystem development. And by doing this, you need to have a community that is participate in a sustainable way, and in order to do that, you need some governance and tokenomics design and implementations that be in a right way. So what I want to ask you, Tyler, is like, what are the new incentive mechanisms that's being implemented and experimenting by the projects, maybe from your side, for increasing the community participation within the ecosystem?
So, I mean, what has been seen a lot in the DAO incentive structure is that you put out bounties and you assign a certain amount of monetary value to that bounty, right? So, for example, audit a smart contract, you get several $1,000s. Write an article, you get $100, something like that, right? According to the arbitrary decision of the person creating the bounty within that DAO. We're experimenting with a new way of incentivizing people at CrowdMuse, where we have like mutually agreed upon by the DAO the ways that the skill level and the impact level of certain tasks are fed back into a formula, and then that formula allows us to decide on the monetary value of a contribution. The important thing to remember, I mean, it kind of ties back into the regenerative finance need, is that the monetary reimbursement has to be enough so that people are motivated to continue working. I think that there was a study done in the United States about maybe 20 years ago that once you pay a salary of over $120,000 a year, people don't increase their performance. They actually lose motivation because it's no longer important for them, right? This comes down to extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. So extrinsic is your basic survival needs and your salary and your cost of living, but then intrinsic is what really is important for DAOs, and that boils down to autonomy, which is part of the name, right? You have the ability to actually take control of your work and make decisions. And you know, it's interesting because the DAO model, it allows contributors to very easily experiment and pivot between different DAOs until they find their right fit that resonates with their value systems, right? So it's not like you go and sign a contract with a corporation, you have to work with them and then you have to resign a year later. But with a DAO, you can go and contribute to multiple different DAOs and then see which group of people are more along your value system. And then once you see that you fit with them, you kind of dedicate more time, and then you start showing that you're more serious, and then you become part of the core team, right? So the first one is autonomy. That's how that's working. Mastery, of course, is the skill, right? So if once you become better at something, you become more proud of your work. It's important in intrinsic motivation and incentive methods. And then, of course, purpose, which is the why, right? So that's kind of like the driving vision behind this cause. And if there are people who can unite behind a cause, I mean, you've seen in cooperatives and volunteer organizations, they don't even really care so much about the extrinsic motivators. So extrinsic motivators will draw people in, the money, right? But then intrinsic motivators will keep people there. That's what makes a DAO sticky.
Thanks a lot. Before giving the final words, Luca, do you want to speak about this topic as well? Maybe a few words you would like to say.
About governance.
Yes.
Yeah, well, governance is, again, I try to simplify. When we started creating DAOs, when we said everybody can vote, we said, look, everybody will vote. And then we realized like nobody votes because voting requires effort to reach a decision. So we all, when I say we, I mean the whole Web3 space, of course. We started thinking, how do you motivate people to vote? And maybe we can pay them, but if you pay people to vote, then they will vote without making the work. I like the direction it's going, which is delegate. ENS has done good work with that. The nose is safe. I mean, now it's called Safe, did the same. I'm a delegate of both. So the delegate is more, because he's a public figure who's representing votes of other people, kind of does the job, because this attracts like, the feedback loop is good, right? I'm a safe delegator and I vote consciously. That works well, in my opinion. But again, we just started at in big DAOs to do that. It's promising, but it's not the answer yet. But the the intrinsic motivation is what actually gives the answer. I mean, if you are in the DAO because, not for the money, but because you have a passion for it or whatever other reason, there's many reasons, you're gonna also make the effort of voting because you feel that it's yours and you give something to the DAO and the DAO gives something to you. In Trips community, for instance, most people, what they got back was learning Web3 and being into a group which protected them from the many dangers of Web3, right? So you feel that DAO gives you something, you give something back when you vote. Yeah.
That's also ownership, right? Because as a voting member of the DAO, you own some tokens. So then you're intrinsically motivated because you feel like you're participating in the future.
Yeah.
Giving the ownership and empowering the people around you, so they will also empower other people and connected within. They will all empowered by the power
But
itself.
tokens are not, just tokens are not enough because if you're too successful, the token goes up, you sell it, you're out. So they are part of a mix, right? But yeah, they're very important, of course, yeah.
All right, so I will want to give the final words to each of speakers. Berkan, I would like to start with you. So what is the vision of UN Refugee Agency in the next years regarding this technology? Could you tell us more about the vision and mission of yours?
Certainly, the biggest vision under all this blockchain environment is that we want to learn more, we want to cooperate more, we want to partner more with this ecosystem so that we can actually develop new ways of supporting to the refugees. And what I mean by refugees, let's not only keep this as the refugees, because when you consider the refugee problem globally, it's not only refugees anymore, it is also the host community members. So you, me, anybody living in Turkey is also now trying to think and find solutions of the Syria refugee crisis, which is affecting the whole country in itself. Yes, this also happens everywhere too. So having said this, under this area and with my colleagues here, and this also gives us a very good impression that we are on the right track of looking into this, the shared responsibility of the structure, the ownership of this DAO environment might be a good thing for UNHCR, for other UN agencies I am also thinking, but we are now at the baby steps of it, we are learning it, and in the future years I am believing that we are going to be in front of you with a very concrete example in which like a global tool that can be used for the public good.
Thank you, Berkan. They just wanted me to finish it as soon as possible, so I'm just going to ask you one small question, and I ask you to like maybe just a small talk. So, how do you envision the future of public goods funding in Web3?
Well, I mean, humans have the technology, we just lack the coordination. So as we get together here, we can actually create it. As we learn from each other, then we can create a better future with greater abundance. That's my thesis.
Yeah, we just keep experimenting. You know, we don't know. I think one of the main reasons people donated a lot in public goods, like in Gitcoin, for instance, was like hoping for a airdrop, but that worked. I mean, it really brought money in, and you know that was again the speculation aspect or the financial profit, but it worked. I think we're going to find better ways and more sustainable ways.
Sure.
We have to keep experimenting. It's too early to give like rules. So yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Berkan. Thanks
Thank
a lot,
you.
Tyler. Thanks a lot, Luca. And thanks a lot to all of the people. Thank you.